Welcome to the Support of Ambition, where we celebrate creativity, ambition, and the journey of bringing big ideas to life. I'm your host, Danny, and each week I'll introduce you to inspiring voices from all walks of life. Artists, innovators, and dreamers who are pushing boundaries and redefining what's possible. This podcast is about the power of support, shared stories, and the belief that we're all stronger when we lift each other up. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Today, we're thrilled to welcome a true master of musical storytelling to the podcast. Brett Boles is an award-winning composer, lyricist, and musical theater expert who has made a name for himself both on stage and online. Brett's talents have been recognized across the industry, but he's also, and maybe even more importantly, in my opinion, a teacher at heart. Through his widely popular TikTok series, The MT, Brett breaks down the art and mechanics of songwriting, offering unique insights into the emotional and technical elements that make great musical theater songs resonate. His passions for mentoring aspiring songwriters has also helped him launch his platforms like the Transformational Songwriting and the MT Studio, where he helps songwriters at every level unlock their creative potential. So whether he's crafting unforgettable melodies, dissecting iconic songs, or inspiring the next generation of storytellers, Brett's deep love for the art of musical theater shines in everything he does. So we're excited here to dive into his creative process, his journey, and the incredible work he's doing to help others transform their ideas into unforgettable songs. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's really great to see you and talk to you in person. I feel like I kind of know you after watching a lot of your videos.
Sure.
So it's a little bit, what's the word? A little odd in a way. It's like, hey, that's the person I was watching. Now I'm getting to talk to them. So it's pretty cool.
Here we are.
So your career, and it spans so many different facets of music and theater. But what first drew you into songwriting, and how did you decide to turn that into basically your life's work?
That's a great question. When I was a kid, I grew up with country music. My mom was like a horse person, and so I grew up on a farm, and so it was always country music playing. And the thing about country music that sort of it ties really nicely into musical theater writing because country music is all about storytelling.
Yeah.
And so the first songs I ever started writing were country tunes because that's what I knew. And then I enrolled in a camp for musical theater when I was in 7th grade. My grandmother made me sign up for this camp. So I started to fall in love with musical theater. And then in high school, I started writing more musical theater type stuff since that's what I was doing. It's what I was listening to. And as I was, also an actor and a performer. So, I had that way into songwriting, which I think is really important if you're a musical theater songwriter, to be at least be able to get into a character's head,
Mm-hmm.
And then that led to going to Ithaca College for music composition. They have a really strong musical theater program there, which is what drew me there. And my professor happened to be a musical theater nut, just luckily. So we really vibed. And he helped me create my first real full-length musical that was performed at the college. And from there, things just sort of took off.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember going to theater camp in high school. They combined band, art, and show choir, which I was in, and it was just a lot of fun and a lot of excitement there. So yeah, I feel those memories coming back.
All the nostalgia.
Now, you mentioned your professor that you vibed with there. Was he one of your main mentors, or that really shaped your path as a composer and lyricist?
100%. He was not only was he a composition professor when I went there, he was also the dean of graduate studies for music. So he was really well connected in the department, and he and I would meet more than our allotted time during the week because he just wanted to help me develop this show. And it's his voice. I tell my students this all the time. I still hear his voice in my ear. He's actually the president of the University of Hartford right now, which is not an hour from me. But anyway, it's his voice. I still always hear in my ear whenever I'm writing it. We would sit at the piano in his office together, and I would play stuff for him that I'd written the day before or that week. And I'd get to a certain chord, and he'd lean over and he'd go, "Is that really the chord you want there? I think you can do better than that." So I have constantly this voice in my head now. Every time I'm writing, I'm like, "Is that really the chord you want? I think you can do better." Uh, and if I wish everybody, I wish every songwriter had that little voice on their shoulder because it makes you better, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, that leads me to ask and think and wonder, what came first for you? The more of the lyrics or the music portion when you're writing your songs? Is it, do you hear the melody first, or you like have a poem that you want to write and that's what comes out first?
So for me, if I'm writing both things, if I'm writing music and lyrics, then it's they sort of come together like a puzzle. What I have learned, along the way and in the process, and learning from people who have done this for a living and do this really well, and now it's
Hmm.
become my practice, is that. And it's what I teach my students. I tend to start with a hook, which means usually the hook is the title of the song. So
Hmm.
whether it's a lyric paired with a melodic motif or whatever, but it's usually like, especially when you're talking about musical theater or even Disney, because Disney is very
Yeah,
musical theater
it
oriented
is.
now,
Mhm.
especially since the Howard Ashman days. It's a what moment in the story you're writing for, what character you're writing for, which already gives you a way in. And
Mhm.
then the key is developing that hook first, because everything in that song needs to relate to that hook. So that central idea is of paramount importance. So once you get that idea, then usually, so once that hook idea comes, then usually there's some sort of melodic component to it, and then I'll maybe start to play with a rhythmic groove or an accompanimental groove or a vamp or something that feels like it's in that sound world of the character and the show and the the moment that I'm writing for, and
Mhm.
then things will sort of start to develop,
Cool.
piecemeal
That's
from there.
nice. That's really cool. I mean, I always love hanging around musicians and being around them when they're composing and just because they're from nothing comes this melodic just outpouring of emotion, and it's just like I just sit in awe because I can't do that.
It
For all
seems
my
like magic when you
Yeah,
when
it is.
you approach it that way. Yeah, yeah.
It really is. And it's just like just seeing that. And so just hearing you explain that, and it's just like I'm sitting here in awe because I want to be able to do that. And I'm sure if I put my efforts into it, maybe you could teach me and I could get to that point. But just it's just amazing to me. So that leads me into your TikTok series where I first
Yeah,
came across you, and
yeah.
that's the MT, and it's become very, very popular. So I have to ask, how did you come up with the name? Is it something simple like you're spilling the musical tea, or is there something more involved to it?
So it was a shower thought one day, and it was the way it developed was the original idea was that it was only going to be musical theater tunes,
Okay.
and so
Hmm.
the vernacular slang in the industry for musical theater is MT.
Okay.
But since I was going to be spilling the tea on how
Ah,
musical theater songs are created, it became a play on words.
gotcha.
But then it just became a catch-all for everything I started doing. Sort of expanded. So yes, musical tea, musical theater, MT, music teacher, whatever. It all kind of works. Music theory, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's really cool. That's so yeah. You're spilling the tea. I get it. That's an
Totally.
MT musical theater makes sense. I like it. Cool. Did you expect it when you first started doing it that it was going to resonate so strongly with fans of both musical theater and just music in general?
No, never, never in a million years. Actually, I was teaching high school at the time. It was right during the pandemic. I think my first TikTok was December 2020, right
Oh
before
wow!
January
Right. Mhm.
2021. So yeah, and the idea was, since no theater was really happening at that point, and my students were all over TikTok, and they were, oh, Mr. Bowles, you should make a TikTok. You should do something on TikTok. And I don't even know what that is. And I downloaded the app. I watched some of the stuff. I was like, okay, maybe I think I get how this format works. I was like, what can I give to people that they won't be able to get anywhere else but from me? And how can I combine my love of teaching, my love of songwriting, my background as a performer? Like, how can I do all of those things? And so the idea I had was, well, why don't I pull back the curtain or peel back the curtain on the songwriting process, because
Mhm.
nobody really does that. And
Mhm.
and why don't I teach people about why they love the songs that they love from a songwriter's perspective, so they're hearing it right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Like, this is the way we think when we write things. And I thought, if I can teach a few hundred people about this, that would be great. Um, that certainly snowballed into something else, but no, I never expected it to, not in a million years.
Well, I think, and at least for me, it really did. And I think I mentioned this to you once. It led me to a better appreciation of the songs. Hearing them broken down the way that you do. And I think that's mainly probably what you're aiming for, is people to appreciate that songwriting, the skill and artistry that goes into it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's the goal. My real goal with this was to try to make this as accessible as possible to people who
Mm-hmm.
don't have the musical jargon or the musical vocabulary to listen to some music theorist try to explain these things. It's like, how can I simplify this and make it so that anybody can understand this, even if they have no musical experience really or musical background? And so hearing that, like, that is one of my favorite comments to get, is like, I hear music with new ears now, and I have a whole new appreciation for how this stuff works. And I don't have any musical, background really, but I understand what you're telling me. Like, that stuff, that makes my world. I get so happy when I hear those things, because that is the mission.
That's awesome. Well, mission accomplished so far. So, how do you pick what songs to analyze? Is there also a particular song or moment that you're like, hey, all the fans love that one. Maybe I should continue with that.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was doing a lot of requests, so I
Okay.
would keep a running list of things that people requested, and then whatever I sort of felt compelled to do that day, I would do. And I don't really keep a list anymore. I take it day by day, and I think, what can I put out there that originally it was musical theater. Then I expanded to Disney stuff because I felt like I'd be able to reach more people, because
Yeah. Yeah.
so many people are familiar with the Disney stuff. And if
Mhm.
I could explain how that stuff works, then I could capture them and then sneak in the musical theater stuff so that I could start to expand people's palettes a little bit,
Yeah.
but draw them in with the Disney stuff.
Yeah. Your
Um,
Moana breakdown was awesome. I love that one about the sea, the note, the
that's my
sea.
favorite. That's my favorite one.
Oh, okay, cool.
Really my favorite.
With your MT blowing up and getting huge, did you feel any more of the social media pressure or expectations from your fans?
Yes. More in the beginning than now. I felt a lot of pressure to put out the thing that I thought was going to get the most views and the most likes and the most, that was a thing for me for a while. I was constantly watching the metrics
Yeah, yeah.
and, after, I would say probably after like 300,000 followers, I was like, you know what? We're here. I'm just going to do what I want and, and hope that they stick around. So I stopped looking at all that stuff right around that point. But yes, I did for a while. I did, and now I don't feel, it's not so much pressure, but it's like I feel a responsibility to like be engaged with my community and make sure that I'm keeping it a safe place and a
Yeah.
kind place and all that. But yeah, I feel a responsibility now, but I wouldn't say I feel pressure.
Okay, that's cool. One thing I did notice, since you mentioned that engaging with the audience, that you don't shy away from people, trolls or naysayers, that I've seen you like actively engage with them and show them why they're wrong. Is that something that you made a point that you said, I'm going to do that, or is just something that just happened?
Yeah, I enjoy conversation and I enjoy engagement and I enjoy teaching. So if someone's willing to learn, I'm willing to teach. And even if it seems like they're unwilling to learn, I'm going to try to teach anyway. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Sometimes
Yeah.
it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I'm all about including people. And so even if people are going to come on there and be, at least on the surface, be jerks about stuff, like, I'll engage and I'll try to teach. And if I manage to teach somebody something, great. And if not, at least I tried.
There you go. That's all you can do. Absolutely. You also created transformational songwriting. It's
Mhm.
your course that you teach. Uh, how has that been, or can you tell us what inspired you to launch that platform to even expand out your reach even further?
Yeah. So while my social media videos, the short minute long or 90-second videos are really aimed at capturing everybody, I'm sort of
Mhm.
like a catch-all. I also started thinking about the fact that there really is no way outside of a college or university to really learn the craft of this. Nobody teaches that.
Yeah.
So I thought, wouldn't it be so great if I could create a program for a fraction of the cost of a degree, but make it a comparable education,
Hmm.
and give so many more people access to this kind of songwriting education they can't get anywhere else. And so that quickly became a mission for me as well, was to help songwriters learn and master the craft of songwriting, and give them a community in which to do that, like a really safe space with a
Yeah.
lot of people who
Yeah.
are like-minded and who are doing the same thing. And I was I left my public school job in June of 23, and in that that previous October I had started thinking like I love the kids at my school job, and I love teaching music and choir, and it was fun for me, but it was like I'm working. It was a top-notch choral program. There's a musical every year, and so you're working these 12-hour days, 14-hour days. The pay is crap, in
Yeah.
public education.
Mm-hmm.
So while I love the kids, it was like I'm not serving people to my fullest potential here.
Yeah.
So how can I do something where it allows me to reach people on a global level, really get more involved with them, and allows me to live a life where I can actually spend the time doing that. So that's why I launched this program, and it has changed my life. It has changed the lives of the students that are in it. We've had at this point it's probably 130, 140 people come through,
Wow. That's cool.
and it's been the true blessing and joy of my life being able
That's
to do that.
awesome. I mean, yeah, you took that chance on yourself, really, and you said, "I'm going to do it," and you went for it. That's commendable. That's awesome. A
It's
lot of people
scary.
are kind of afraid to do that.
Yeah, it was very scary. My one of my professors in grad school, his name is Patrick Ermlich, and he taught this brand and identity course at Berkeley, which was worth the price of everything that I paid to get half of that degree. But he said something. We had this big discussion about like how as human beings, we're so hardwired to make choices based on our circumstances. We make choices based on what we have or don't have.
Mhm.
We choose to do things based on that, and as a result, we are whatever. We're overworked, we're tired, we're
Yeah.
underappreciated, whatever. And so what he said is that in order to be fulfilled in life, you have to flip the script and start from who you want to be. Who is the person you want to be? What kind of choices do you have to make to align with that person? And at the end of the day, if you do those things, you will have the things that you want in life. And then the trigger was he goes after one class, he said, do something unreasonable today. So all of that stuff mixed together made me submit my resignation to my high school job the
Wow.
next day.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going for it. And
Yeah.
so I took a chance on myself and I did the thing and it worked out. So.
He was like, I said unreasonable, not that.
He was like, I was so funny. I met him at a networking event he ran a few months ago, and I was there. I went up to him and I talked to him for 15 minutes or so, and he was like, I have to tell you, Brett, you are one of maybe two or three people who took that advice and like really ran with it. I just couldn't. I can't believe it, and I'm so happy that you have.
That's awesome. um, with your songwriters and your students in your transformational songwriting classes, do you see like a common hurdle that they all face, and how do you help them get through that or break through that, I guess?
Yeah, the by far the biggest thing is people who they start songs and they don't finish them. There's that bolt of inspiration that strikes, and you get a verse done, or you write a chorus, and then it just kind of goes away. And two main reasons for that. One is you don't really have the tools or the techniques to be able to push through the times when the inspiration isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And two is the process, right? You don't have a process to follow. So that's really what I try to help songwriters with, is like, how do I structure a song? How do I plan the song before I start writing it so that everything is in place and the song is then just screaming to be written and everything is there. And so once they have a process to follow, and once they have all these tools and techniques at their disposal, it becomes a lot easier to then start finishing the things that you write, and with gentle accountability, obviously, from me and from the group. And there is a financial component involved, which I think is super important for folks, because when you financially invest in yourself, you are way more likely to do the thing that you say you're going to do. That's why college works.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. If you're just like, oh yeah, I'll get it done, or if you're already invested in it, yeah, you're going to make sure you see it through. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about songwriting itself and the anatomy of a memorable song, if you don't mind. Um, I guess I already asked this for you. You said they both come together as like a puzzle. What? But I guess in your opinion, what truly makes a song memorable? Something that stays with the audiences long after they hear it.
I think there's a number of things that go into this. So the first thing that I would say is there has to be a balance of repetition and variation, right? So you have to have enough repetition that the listener has something to grab onto, but enough variation that we can maintain listener engagement throughout the course of
Yeah.
the song. So that's definitely something. So the hook of the song, that should be catchy and that should be repeated so that we have something in our heads and we can anticipate something, and when it happens it's like surprising but inevitable. Like we know it's coming and we're happy that it's there. The other thing is usually we try to create songs that have what I call prosody in them, prosody. And that means that the music and the lyrics are all telling the same story. So the lyrics are supporting the music is supporting the lyric. So that, I mean, the easiest example of this is text painting. So, if we're singing about looking up towards the sky, the melody should probably be moving in an upward trajectory, right? So it's like sort of simple things like that. There are more complex forms of this in terms of like what kinds of rhythms are you using? How many lines does your stanza have? How many words does your stanza have? What kinds of rhymes are you using to create more instability or stability in your lyric? So there's all sorts of things that go into making a song memorable. I think repetition, variation, and structure are two of the biggest things.
Very cool. That makes sense. I mean, perfect sense to me. So where do you see, since you are deeply involved in the craft of musical theater, where do you think the future of musical theater is heading? I know we see like lots of like, with like Hamilton, and I'm not as keyed into musical theater as I would like anymore, but you get the classics, Guys and Dolls is just one of my favorite because I was actually in that one, but stuff like that. Where do you see the trends going, especially as it comes to songwriting and storytelling?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. So, I'm trying to see how to put this as succinctly and non-controversially as possible. Well, there are a couple things happening. So, as far as the industry goes, I think there is an effort. Look, it's a business, right? It's all about making money.
Mm-hmm.
So producers want to know that the show that they're putting up is going to recoup its investment, or they at least want to do as much as they can do to make sure that the show is going to recoup its investment, at least, if not make money. So for that to happen, you need either a known property. So something that's either a revival that's been done before or something that's been adapted from a known property, or you need a really established writer like a Lin-Manuel Miranda or a Stephen Schwartz or an Alan Menken or somebody like that. And you need some kind of A-list celebrity to be in the show that's going to sell tickets. So like these are like the money-making aspects of it. So it's less normal right now to see brand new original material on Broadway, if we're calling Broadway the end all be all, which you could argue with, but for the sake of argument, let's just say that's like the end result, right? We want our show to be on Broadway. Well, yeah. So that's what we're looking at, and so it's less normal to see purely original stuff there, just because the chances of making money aren't. That being said, because of that, and because of this desire to bring in some known entities, a lot of those known entities are not musical theater writers. A lot of them are pop songwriters. So sometimes these pop songwriters are relatively well versed in musical theater song form and musical theater structure. Oftentimes they're not. So you're getting material out there that isn't as well crafted from a storytelling perspective or a musical theater perspective, because the knowledge of the craft and what has come before is not there. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with experimenting. I'm all for it. Sure, go ahead. But at the same time, I think this is an art form that has been, developed and evolving in America since the Yiddishkeit shows and the Princess Theater shows way back when in the 1920s, 1910s, and into the book musicals of Rodgers and Hammerstein in the 1940s and onward. And there are things that work, and they work for a reason. And so I think as as other types of songwriters get into the space and they aren't as aware of how these things are constructed, I think you have some less successful material out there because there's a reason why this stuff works and engages with the musical audience. But I'm hopeful. I mean, I think, and I'm all about experimentation. And remember, like you mentioned, Hamilton, like Lin-Manuel Miranda is extraordinarily well versed in musical theater, song form and structure. Grew up on golden age musicals as a student, like a student of Sondheim and Jonathan Larson and all that. And he understands how musical theater is put together. So even though he's using stylistically like new sort of pop and R&B and hip hop content, the structure and the form is very, very musical theater, even though you may not notice that on first glance. And the same thing with Book of Mormon. Somebody mentioned to me, the Book of Mormon was so, revolutionary in so many ways, and it was so brand new. And in some ways it was in terms of the content, yes. But Bobby Lopez, again, very, very trained, went through the BMI musical theater workshop. He knows how to structure a musical theater tune. And so a lot of the song forms are very, very standard in shape, even though the content is different. So I think that's anyway, I could go on for hours, but that's I'm hopeful. I think the future of musical theater is bright.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm starting to get back into it. I know here in Vegas where I'm at, we have the Smith Center and they bring in through a lot of shows. So I'm hoping to get to more of them there just because I really enjoy it. I mean, I might be the only one in my household, but I enjoy it.
That's okay.
Yeah. So if you could write a musical about anything, any story, any person, any event, what would it be and why?
Okay, well, so personally, and this is just personally.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember around the pandemic. This is when I was still a baby TikToker, but that TikTok Ratatouille musical sort of took off. I don't know if you heard about that.
I think yeah.
The thing had happened. Right before that had happened, I had been developing my own adaptation of Ratatouille for a while before that. No. I was too much of a baby TikToker to get in on that process, so I missed it. But that is like my dream. I want to adapt the Ratatouille Pixar movie into a musical. So that's my personal like dream goal.
That is awesome. I can see that. I don't know how it'd be adapted on stage, but maybe. But that's
there
cool.
are magical ways of doing a whole lot. Broadway money, anything is possible. With Pixar money, anything is possible.
Very true. Very true. All right, I have some fun rapid fire questions for you. Just as we get towards the end of the interview here. Favorite Broadway musical of all time?
Ragtime.
Most underrated musical theater song?
Ooh, Finishing the Hat.
What is that from? Because I have never heard that one.
Sunday in the Park with George, Steve Sondheim.
I saw that in high school. Didn't appreciate it at the time, but I need to go back and watch it.
Differently as you get older.
Yeah, that's true. Composer or lyricist, living or dead, that you would most like to collaborate with?
Alan Menken.
Very cool. What's your guilty pleasure song that you secretly love?
Oh, that's a good one. Maybe Alone in the Universe from Seussical. Just love that.
Okay.
Love that song. Another sort of underrated show, I think, so in some ways.
Well, before we go, how can listeners connect with you, or where can they dive into more of your work and learn more about you? What's the best place for them to do that?
I mean, I really just have the social media stuff. It's really just Instagram. Instagram is the best way. I just feel like the most engaged people are there, and everything that I'm doing in my life, I post on there. So I would just say at the Brett Boles on Instagram is the best way, or at Brett Boles on TikTok. But who knows how long TikTok's going to be around? So.
Thank you. Well, Brett, this has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your creative process and all those little behind the scene gems that you gave us. And since, you have the MT, and I have to ask, can you close us out with your catchphrase?
Absolutely.
All right.
It's been a pleasure being here. Pleasure talking to all of you. I hope I taught you something today. I will see you soon. And that's the MT.